Hello everyone, welcome back. Welcome back. How is it already the end of May? I have no idea, but we're gonna talk May wrap up, what I read in May. Now, most of the books that I read this month were on my Kindle. I only read 3 physical books out of the 6 in total that I read this month. So we're going to go through the Kindle books first and then into the physical books. Now, most of these are in order. I'm pretty sure actually all of them are in order. Nope, they're not. Okay, so the first book that we read this month was White Hot Kiss by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I'm not going to talk too much about this book because in the previous video, the video I posted on Wednesday, it talks about all of White Hot Kiss. It is a reading vlog purely off of that book, but I will tell you that I did end up rating it a 5-star. There was a little bit of spice, but not too bad. Not too bad. So yeah, White Hot Kiss, 5 stars by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I loved that book. It was the first book that I read this month. It was so good. So good. And then I started to read Zodiac Academy and I had to soft DNF it because it was just not the book for me at the time. So while I soft DNF'd that book, I picked up Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. This is her newest book release and I am obsessed with this book. I also had talked about this book in a previous video where I was talking about how Emily Henry has such a beautiful way of talking about grief and writing about her characters dealing with grief. I think she has a beautiful way of doing so. I also believe that Emily Henry is she's just my favorite author. I think me reading her books are just always going to be a 5-star for me. I loved this book. I loved everything about this book. I loved our characters. I mean, and yeah, I have another video on this book, so I'm not going to talk too much about it, but this book was fantastic. The next book that we read this month, the third book that we read, was Butcher and Blackbird. Now, you guys know, if you watched my May TBR, how stressed I have been to read Butcher and Blackbird. But, shocker, it ended up being one of my favorite books that I read this month. How does that happen? I have no idea. I loved Rowan. I don't think that I can explain this book enough. I just loved every second about this book, everything, the plot, the characters, the setting. I loved everything. We rated Butcher and Blackbird a 4.75. The reason I did not rate it a 5 stars was because it was making me nauseous, because I'm an easy queasy, ladies and gentlemen. I'm an easy queasy. So I did not rate it a 5-star purely because it was making me nauseous. The fourth book, I almost said the third. The fourth book that we read this month was Gild by Raven Kennedy, the first book in the Plated Prisoner series, and I had mentioned that I had started that book a while ago, right? I'm pretty sure I started it right around the time that Crescent City 3 came out. My heater just kicked on. I'm sorry. But I was reading this book around the time that Crescent City 3 came out, and Crescent City 3 was obviously a little bit more important than Gild, so I put it on the back burner and just never came back to it. I don't know why, I just never did. And so Ashley, she chose this book for me this month because I have been telling her that I was going to pick it back up, but I never did, so she gave me the incentive to do so. And I rated Gild a 3.75. I really did enjoy this book. There was just something about it just was not hitting right for me. I don't know what it was. I'm not sure if it was the writing or just the story in general, but I was just not a huge fan of this book. But overall, it was an okay read. It was a 3.75, and if you guys have not watched it yet, go look to see how I rate my books to understand my rating system. But a 3.75 is not a bad rating in my opinion, so I did really enjoy this book. Now, the fifth book that we read this month is the book that I had been putting off for a very long time, but I got to book 2 this month and it was so good. Daisy Haites by Jessa Hastings. I devoured this book. I loved, oh, could have lost those. I devoured this book. I loved every single second about this book. I mean, you guys can see the tabs for yourself. Literally was obsessed with this book. Everything about this book was fantastic. I love the characters in Jessa Hastings' books. I love the writing. It just feels like you are literally there. She has been doing such a good job at sucking me into her stories that I genuinely forget that I'm reading and like that I'm not part of a mafia, part of a gang. And I'm absolutely not a rich British girl. So, I mean, obviously this is not me. This is not by any means something that I can be like, oh, that's relatable. No, it is absolutely not relatable. But there's such great stories and I am so excited to pick up the 3rd book. I am picking it up this weekend. You guys, Jessa Hastings is making her way up onto my favorite authors list. I am devouring the Magnolia Park series. I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed. But also, do not, and I repeat, do not look at these relationships as something to look up to, okay? Now, the last book that we read this month, this was my favorite book that I read in the last bit of May. Holy moly, it was beautiful. And that was Summer in the City by Aster. I am still genuinely thinking about this book. I loved every second of it. Our characters are... How's the best way to explain this? Our characters are very much so polar opposites, but also not polar opposites. And so our 2 main characters meet each other at the beginning of the book. They come back around and meet each other again later. It's a meet cute, it's a situationship. It's just 10 out of 10, one of the best stories that I've read this month. And it really does give me like early 2000s rom-com vibes. Like I feel like I could flip over to a Hallmark channel, or I mean, even for goodness sake, I could turn on Sex and the City and it would feel very reminiscent of this book. I loved every second of it. I loved our characters. I loved our plot. I loved the setting. There was not a second of this book that I did not enjoy. So let's recap. Summer in the City by Aster, 5 stars. Super spicy, 5 stars. I don't think I'm ever going to stop thinking about this book. Daisy Haites by Jessa Hastings, 4.75. Beautiful book, beautiful story. Gang lords, super hot. I mean, come on. Gild by Raven Kennedy, 3.75. Overall, a really enjoyable book. I loved the plot that our main female character literally just, you know, she's just a badass. You just have to read it to understand. She's a badass though. Go read those books. Then we are talking Butcher and Blackbird, which is a 4.75. So good. So good. I will be continuing this series. Then we are talking Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. This book was fantastic. 5 stars. Emily Henry never fails with me. This book talks about grief, it talks about love, it talks about life, it talks about death, it talks about every single emotion that you can go through in your day-to-day life. Beautiful story. Then our first book that we read this month was White Hot Kiss by Jennifer L. Armentrout, and it was also a 5 star. So overall, I mean, this isn't going to be as satisfying because I only have 3 of them physically, but so other books are here. These are the books that I read this month. I overall had such a fantastic reading month. I don't think I have devoured books like this in such a long time. I feel like every single book that I read this month had captured my attention and it kept me there. I mean, guys, this was such a good reading month. I read a total of 6 books, 3 on my Kindle and 3 physically. So, with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Make sure you leave a comment downstairs. Make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.